Hi there, Derek. This is Claire from Animal Energy Therapies. This is the first time I've sent a video review of a session, but Emma was very clear this is how you will best process the information rather than a written report. So I've gone with it. So here we go. I've got some notes off to the side here, which is why I'll keep looking this way. Okay, so I read through your email. I have all the information I needed on Emma and her conditions. And so when I started the session, the first thing that I do is I check that the energy all runs the proper way. So we have sort of energetic circuits that run through our body, and I need to check they're all flowing in the right direction, because if any of them are blocked, then the biofeedback that I get through muscle testing can be a little bit off. So when I tested those, a lot of them were off, and so they needed fixing. So then I move into sort of our planes of energy, and she had a blockage on a few of them. The main one was her front and back energy. So this is how, the body pivots forwards and backwards. So on a physical level, this would tell me that there's some tension in her lower back. But on a metaphysical level, this is, so if this was a person, this would be someone who, as they start to move forward in life, they get pulled back again. So they perhaps have negative belief patterns running, so that as they try to move forward and create something new, suddenly that old trigger is there and they're pulled right back. So they have real difficulty in moving forward, and they'll just bounce between something new and something old the whole time. The next lot of her energy that was out was her right and left. So on a physical level, this would mean, if she was like pushed from the side, she wouldn't be very stable. So it would take a few steps for her to regain her balance, as opposed to, someone hitting her and she just immediately becomes centre again. She would stumble a little bit to the side. So on a metaphysical level, this right-left energy blockage is about not really knowing which way to turn, not really knowing which direction they're going in. If it was a person who had that issue, they would just basically be going round in circles. So when it's an animal, that is often one of the things we notice as well, is they'll often come into a room and they'll walk in circles, or they'll pace around, and they're never, it takes them a little while to settle, and you'll often wonder why they came into the room. So those might be symptoms that you're seeing, but either way, those are the energy pathways that were blocked. So I cleared all of those, and then we were good to go. So I actually had a person surrogate on the table. So rather than me muscle test on myself, I felt she would feel better if she had a person there. So I had someone lie down. When the interesting thing was, when I started to work with her, I began sneezing. I'm really allergic to cats, and so I very rarely have them in my clinic. And that was really strange. I had the same allergic reaction even though she wasn't there. That was quite funny. So as I start, I'm conscious of all the issues that she has, but I'm asking for the priority. So I asked, what's the priority? Where can I start to work that's going to make the most difference for her? So I'll just refer to my notes here. So the first thing that came up was respiratory system. That's where I had to start. So I knew immediately this was in reference to her cough. So then I need to start to ask, actually, let's just take this back a step. Okay, so the first level to this respiratory system stress is there would be a residual stress around the body that stops energy coming in, or healing and self-balancing happen to the body. So there must be something out here that stops her being able to balance it herself, okay? So the emotion that I came up with, so how I got to the emotion was, we use a technique with flower essences. So I find 2 meridians in her body that are under stress. And those 2 will be under stress because one will be pulling energy from the other one. So one is being overused, it's using too much energy. And because there's only a certain amount of energy in the body, it borrows energy from another meridian, which puts that one into stress. So your first one's under stress because it's being overused, and then the second one is under stress because it doesn't have enough energy. So the first meridian I found was the lung, which made sense with the coughing. That's why it's expelling more energy and using more energy than it should. And it was pulling energy from her kidney meridian. Now, the kidney meridian comes up throughout this balance, which led me to believe that the blood in the urine was actually from the kidneys, it's not from the bladder. So anyway, with the emotional stuff, I have a sort of referencing system with the flower essences. So I look at, okay, so we have the kidney under stress, and we have the lung under stress, and we have the kidney under stress. Those are the 2 ones. So I'm looking to see, well, when we bring those emotions together, so a weak meridian or an overused meridian will create an emotional response. When those go together and where they talk to each other, what is that emotion? Because that is the emotion that the animal will be suffering from, but also that if the animal has that emotion that's out of balance, it will affect both those meridians. So when you separate them, they still have trouble talking to each other. So the emotion was pessimism about my ability to succeed. So low self-esteem, just not thinking that she can do it. You would think this was actually a very human emotion, but for an animal that comes up a lot as well. They don't think they're doing the right thing. Cats, you don't see this too much in. Dogs, you see it in a lot because they never think they're doing the right thing. And often, after a certain point with our animals, we stop telling them they're good and we only tell them when they're bad. So, just an example would be, when Emma was younger, you perhaps would say, oh, that's a good cat, she'd come over, she'd come for a cuddle, good kitty, that's fine. When she started to scratch up furniture, you might tell her off. Over time, we forget to keep up the reinforcement side of things, and we just, occasionally would tell them off or prevent them doing something that they would like to do. So in those situations, that's when they start to have low self-esteem. Now that can also just be something that's there. That's maybe just how she is, like with people. Sometimes that's just how they are. But that was the emotion that when it's sitting there, doesn't allow her body or her emotions to rebalance itself, okay? So I cleared all that off, and then I went to work deeper on the respiratory system. Now I wanted to find, obviously that's the lungs, but I wanted to find what exactly it is with the lungs that is the issue. So then I tested the actual tissue of the lungs, and it wasn't that. And then I would test like the alveoli, the air sacs, and it wasn't that. It turned out to be the pleural membrane, so just out with the walls of the lungs. There's 2 layers of tissue, and there's fluid in the middle, and they can move against each other. So when the cat breathes in and out and the lungs expand and contract, then those are able to move, those two layers of muscle move across each other really smoothly. And that was where the stress was. So when she's coughing, it's because there's tension within the muscle. It's not moving smoothly. So like I say, it wasn't the lining of the lungs, and it wasn't the air sacs or anything to do with that. That's what I found. So from there, I go down to a tissue level. I started with the lungs. I found the area of tissue that's under stress and the location of it, and then I go to the cells, right? So there's lots of different cells doing different jobs within that tissue. So I wanted to find the ones that were causing the problem, and they were called pneumocytes, type 2 pneumocytes to be precise. And what they do is they secrete the fluid that reduces the tension between those two layers of muscle. So they're basically secreting the mucus and the fluid that allows that nice, easy, smooth motion to happen when the lungs expand and contract. Now, down even further to a biochemical level, it was the stress isn't on her inhaling oxygen, it's on her expelling carbon dioxide. So when she's coughing, that's what it is. It's the pleural membrane not being able to stretch and contract enough in either direction, and she's coughing to help expel the carbon dioxide. So it's not a way of her bringing in more air, it's her expelling, which is making my throat go funny just talking about it. Right, so that's the cells. So we know it's the cells that are secreting this fluid that are the problem. So then I go into the cells and I go, okay, what's not functioning within the cells? So there was two things. One was called the endoplasmic reticulum, and it basically is like a network of tubes that are fluid filled, and they transport proteins where they need to get throughout the cell and then out of the cell as well. Then also there was, they're called cilia and flagella. So they are like, you might be aware of this, like within the intestines, where there's like finger-like structures that move in a wave pattern, like in unison, to move food through the body. So as it's all into a pulp, excuse me, those finger-like structures move it through. So we have them within the cells as well that move things around. So they are out of balance, and so they are not moving in this unified motion, and so things are getting a bit stuck. Also within the cells, you have different methods of moving fluid around. So you have osmosis, filtration, those types of things. So with her, it certainly was the filtration. So there was an imbalance in the hydrostatic pressure that's moving things in and out as well. So by that, what was interesting was everything was coming back to the fluid and, things moving in the right direction, things moving through membranes, things being expelled from the body. But that was the main thing, is because everything's kind of fluid based. All the stress I was picking up was fluid based. And so it's all to do with things moving freely and in the right direction. So I knew, because this was the same within the membrane, the tissues, the cells, was all the same issue, that this was also going to be the case for the kidneys as well, where there's stress on fluid moving through the kidneys and things being expelled, which is why there's possibly the blood in the urine. So it was the same kind of issue. So I knew there was some kind of metaphysical reason for that was going to come up as well. So now that we have gone into the cells, it's really important to always look at like where this comes from and what's causing it. So all of those faults within the cell were all sitting and had all been affected by chromosome 14, which actually sits on a stomach point. That's the chromosome that has the stress on it. So it's almost like it gets switched off, on and off with stress. So that was the one. I can take it right down. Like I went right down even to the DNA molecules and the hydrogen bonds in there to figure out which one wasn't working, to correct them all so that the whole thing starts to fix itself. So we're not just dealing with the symptoms, we've taken it right back to, okay, which part of the DNA is causing this, and let's fix it. Now, the interesting part came in, because that then went back, because I also have to consider, okay, if this DNA molecule and this attached to this chromosome is faulty or weak or under stress, that's come from somewhere. You know, this could be a hereditary issue. So I want to check the ancestral DNA to see where that came from. So that, when I took that back, went to Emma's mum's mum. I think you said Emma was a rescue cat, so you're not going to know who Granny Cat is. But it was her grandmother. And the reason her DNA changed was because of some stress that she was under. So that stress that she was under affected her heart and her kidney. So the kidney came up again. And the cat had real anxiety about the future. She had a sense of weakness in her daily life, and it was all to do with anxiety. So lung-based as well. But over time that affected her heart and her kidneys. So that emotional stress that she was under changed her DNA. Because, you know, emotions switch genes on and off. So that's altered her DNA, and then she's then passed that down the line to Emma, who perhaps has a very similar temperament to her grandmother, which is why that's now been expressed not just through her behaviour, but through the physical body as well. It would have been expressed through behaviour first of all, but when those emotions can't be processed for whatever reason and there's no resolving them, then the body holds on to it and it becomes really physical. So that, yes, went back to her grandmother. So when I clear this, the cool thing about clearing this is I clear it all the way back. So clearing all that for the grandmother not only helps resolve her issues if she's still alive, which is highly plausible, but also that whole genetic line. So any cats that have come off of that grandmother cat will now have had this cleared as well. So this has actually benefited potentially hundreds of cats, which is really cool. Right, now, my next question to Emma was, could I also stack anything else on? So did I need to go and clear anything with the kidneys? And it was no. It was all related to the lung issue. So the blood in the urine is just a symptom of the emotional stress she's under that was affecting the lungs, the cough. That's the main issue. So I then asked, is there anyone else in the household who is not causing the stress, because that's not quite the right term, but is there anyone in the house that has that's causing a reactivity? So say this was anxiety, right, just as an example, and the cat suffers from anxiety. We would then be asking, well, is there anyone else in the house kind of stops you getting over this? So if we work on the cat and take the anxiety away, but then one of the owners is really, really anxious, the cat will end up picking up on the owner's anxiety, and so therefore it's never really free of it. So that's kind of what we're looking for. Is there anyone in the family that does contribute to this emotion in some way, or is Emma being a mirror for someone else's emotions in order to raise an issue? So not that anyone is a direct cause, but is part of this energetic circuit, and it was Derek. So then I needed to go and look at, okay, so what's going on there? Same thing, I went and looked at which meridians were under stress, and that was the heart and the lung. And looking at, okay, let's have a look at how those meridians interact, and when they interact, what's the emotion that's generated? So what's the symptom of this? And it was low self-esteem. So Derek, this might be something that you do suffer from. What it's really pushing you to do is to be more true to yourself and to follow your inner wisdom. Like, you know what to do, you know what you're supposed to be doing. Don't doubt your capabilities. Now this then brings us back to the emotion that came up for Emma right at the beginning, which you'll remember was pessimism about your ability to succeed. So this is quite a clear message to you, Derek, that this is something that you need to look at as well. You're doubting your capabilities. You're not following your inner wisdom. That information came from Stuart Desert Rose, which is an Australian bush flower remedy. The main area of stress is on you finding your purpose. So from your email, you really wanted to know if there was an emotional reason for any of this, how to fix it. And so for you, it's about getting on purpose. Whatever you're doing now is not your purpose. That's not why you're here. Now, whatever stage you're at with this, whether you know what your purpose is, but you just can't quite get there, or you're looking, or you're unfulfilled in some way, you're not quite sure what you're supposed to be doing, this is the message to take action here. So when we look at you not moving forward and into that purpose, it requires movement, it requires forward movement, and it requires a flow of energy. So this flow is very like Emma's. So she's just like, she's basically taken the physical form of your emotions as well. So it's not being free to go with the flow, not going with the flow, maybe being too scared to go with the flow or too rigid. And so that's kind of how she's mirroring it. So anything to do with fluid and water is about things moving. Anything to do with the kidneys as well is always a fear of moving forward, but also detoxing. So getting rid of anything in your life that's not for you anymore. This is where you're off purpose. There's things going on in your life that's draining your energy, that's taking you off purpose, and those are the things that you need to start getting rid of. Now, there was also, when I went in to look at your amygdala, so your emotional centre, there was also quite a bit of energy around depression, and now that had actually showed up for Emma as well, just very briefly. But that might be a circuit that you guys share as well, that there can be this kind of feeling of hopelessness, that you're maybe not reaching your goals or able to move forward in a way that you would want. So you are quite prone to like a sadness and a depression and a heaviness that sits with that when you can't move forward, which is a bit of a vicious cycle, because then you don't have the mindset to move forward either. So I'll leave that with you and you can have a think about that. When I had to clear it, I had to clear it for you both. And so that I had to do through what we call a hologram. And basically all those emotions, this whole range of emotions were sitting within your shoulders and also Emma's shoulders. Now, when I tested the muscles, it was the middle deltoid muscle, which is down here. And for Emma, it's like a little bit lower, just sort of at the top of her leg, but not quite on the shoulder blade. The middle deltoid in Chinese medicine talks to the lung. So it's a real indicator of lung energy. So when I tested that muscle on my surrogate body, it wouldn't hold. It was because I'm looking at it for a specific angle, so I can test it down and up. It was actually on the up. It wouldn't hold. So it was fine testing it this way, but it didn't want to hold when I was trying to push it up. That was where it started to talk to the kidney. So when I'm testing this muscle, I'm testing lung energy. And at the point when it goes weak, I want to know, okay, what meridian is making that go weak? And it was the kidney. So I was back to the same issue that I had before. So you might have been experiencing pain in your shoulder. So if there's problems with this range of motion, then it could be, that if you don't have the pain there, but that you're feeling it across your neck. And so there will be a tightness there that you're maybe aware of. And then, like, metaphysically, that's all about having the weight of the world on your shoulders, those kinds of things as well. For Emma, you probably wouldn't have noticed anything because it's not a huge thing for cats. Because of their range of motion, it wouldn't have affected her movement in any way. But for you, you might have felt pain, and you wouldn't know if Emma was really in pain so much anyway. But these shoulders, I don't know if you feel her muscles, they might feel a little bit tight, and that's because of that overuse of the lung energy and overexpending of energy that belongs to the lungs. Now, I also wanted to mention a few so all of these organs, emotions, acupressure points to do with the DNA, etc. They all have acupressure points that they sit on. And there are quite a lot of them that came up. And this might just be coincidence, it might not, but it's worth mentioning. A lot of them were around the feet, the back feet, and around the toes, and then the kidney point is on the sole of the feet. There was enough blocked points there that would make me want to check that if she perhaps chews her back feet or has had any kind of issue with them or overlicks them or something, because often animals want to try and clear that energy themselves, and so we'll try and do whatever to try and fix it. So whether that's chewing, licking, maybe like kicking their legs out, something like that, they'll be trying to clear that energy. So, like, maybe not, but there was enough points there to make me want to check if that was the case. And if that is the case, then it's not a separate issue. It's all part of this same one, just to let you know that as well. So from here, what I would suggest is we let that settle perhaps for a week and see how her cough is. I would like to work on her again to go a bit deeper, because I really want the cough to clear. If it doesn't, then I want to go in even deeper, and I want to go in and start clearing out that lung meridian quite intensively on its own, and then the same for the kidney, so that we can kind of force that separation of the energy share. If it has helped, I would also like to go in and rebalance her kidney to help with the blood and the urine issue. I mean, like, fingers crossed that this works across everything for just one session, but often it can take two to really nail it once and for all. But I don't suggest like we go in and do another one yet. It's best to just give it some time, see what fixes, allow her the time to try and rebalance it herself. And then we only want to work with what she can rebalance herself. That way you're just working with what's left. Because the point is always to try and create that space for the body to find its own balance, as opposed to us going in and just, manipulating it the whole time to get the result we want. So I think if we could touch base in a week and see how we're going with things, what's changed, what's not, and that would determine the next course of action. I wouldn't start changing anything in her environment, other than maybe giving her a bit of praise now and again, or finding opportunities to praise her, just to try and get over the pessimism about her ability to succeed at things. And then for you, Derek, I really want you to try and explain to me a bit about the purpose thing. And I want you to focus a little bit on that, on what that purpose is, whether you know what it is or whether you don't know what it is. And let me know if there's any stress around that. So if there's anything that you need help with, perhaps your own kinesiologist can help you with that. I don't know what issues that you've been seeing him or her with for before, but I would suggest that your next session that you really look at this to get back on purpose. Now, actually, there was one more bit of information for you, Derek, and what came up was also an essential oil, and the essential oil was neroli, and it's the oil of shared purpose and partnership. So this was about relationships, and this might be something that you need to look at as well. I don't want to say you've got trouble in your relationship if you don't, so that I'll just leave you with this information. But it's about promoting harmony and the sort of changing dynamics of relationships, and how over time they still require acceptance and growth and a little bit of space for each other to grow, without them becoming dysfunctional. And it's about that connection. And so as we change, and if we've been with someone for a long time, keeping on top of how we fit together to allow both of us to expand and learn and grow, but still keeping that connection with each other. So whether that does in fact relate to your relationship, or whether that relates to the relationship you're having, sort of the situation you're in. So maybe if you're on, say, a path of spiritual growth, that you've changed so much that you now don't fit into your old life, that it can be to do with that as well. So it's like, how do I keep connected to my life that I have, even though I've changed? So that takes some understanding, allowing yourself the space, etc. Or it can, of course, mean your relationship. That's for you to decide. So that oil there, neroli, and the information I got came out of this book's Emotions and Essential Oils. So you might want to have a look and just see if it resonates with you. It was just something that came up at the end. It was additional information. So if you could work on that stuff. There wasn't any stress with anyone else in the household specifically related to this issue. So I don't know what other animals or other people are in the household, but there wasn't. And even if there was an animal that she didn't really get on with or wasn't, so enamoured with, it doesn't matter. It's not actually affecting this issue. It's just that you and her have this shared issue, and in her, so working with someone like me and putting the story to that, the narrative to that condition, it helps prompt you to make those changes as well, so that when I clear it for her, she's then put back in a space that's clear and allows her to hold it, as opposed to her being put back into your energy that might be a bit stuck as well, and then that holds her back. I found absolutely nothing, no reference at all to allergies. The spleen and the immune system didn't come up at all. There was no reference to it. So I wouldn't think she has allergies. I think it's purely physically that issue with the pleural membrane. That is a really difficult one for vets to diagnose. They wouldn't, because you wouldn't see anything. It just wouldn't show up. Which might be why your vet has no answers. And if he's looking, with the blood in the urine, if he's looking at issues with the bladder, he's barking up the wrong tree as well, because it's the kidneys. The kidneys came up over and over again, but as being related to this emotional issue. So, okay, I've waffled for nearly half an hour. I'll leave all that information with you. If you could give me some feedback, that would be great on what resonated, what didn't, if you have any questions. But then I'll contact you in about a week and we'll just assess what's changed, what hasn't, and we'll take it from there. Okay? Yeah, any questions at all, just let me know. All right, lovely working with Emma, and I hope to work with her again, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.